What is up, everybody? It is Thursday, December 30th, 2021. My name is Dante. We are Chez Dante. And today, what is going on today? We are just talking about one of my favorite podcasts today. That's the topic, one of my favorite podcasts. But before I get into it, let's hit that intro music.
Perhaps your skills do extend a bit farther than basketball.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about my favorite podcast and why I like it so much. I guess I'll just jump right into it. So, actually, before I even say that, once again, thank you to my first patron supporter. If you guys find something valuable within this podcast, it's some sort of thought, some sort of idea that you think is of value to you. Make sure if it's of value to you, make sure you kind of share that value back on the Patreon and, support it so more people can get this value as well. So support the platform and we'll be able to help more people, as they say, to the moon. Anyways, so my favorite podcast, I guess it should go without any surprise that my favorite podcast is the Joe Rogan Experience. And this is, for me, like, I would say almost without a doubt, mostly because it's been the podcast that I've 100% put the most time into, meaning I've listened to the most, like, this is the podcast that I've listened the most episodes of, listened the most hours of, listened, to episodes repeatedly. So, listening to the same episodes more than once, and why has this podcast been my favorite? For one, I would say is the sheer variety of topics that is possible on the Joe Rogan Experience. Is basically limitless. So every time you listen, you can definitely learn something new because there's the potential of having somebody new on the podcast, right? So one of the great things about the Joe Rogan Experience is that Joe, as someone who is extremely curious, will bring on experts in their field, right? And because he brings in these experts, they have a lot of valuable knowledge, so like very valuable knowledge. And then by going on this podcast, Joe will then start asking them questions, having a conversation, tell some stories. Oh, what did you learn from that story? Or, oh, what study are you doing on this? Or blah, 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 blah. And because he's talking to the subject matter expert, the knowledge that they say or whatever they respond to his questions are, could be very valuable. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like it. It's more like every time I listen to it, I know for a fact that I'm gonna learn something new, which is what I like. I like to learn new things. I like to experience new things, and this is one of the reasons why, it's interesting that he named it the Joe Rogan Experience, because it's like, this is what he's experiencing, right? He's genuinely curious on these topics, so he brings them on this podcast to, talk about it, and he has an experience through that, right? And then over time, over the thousands of episodes, well, not thousands and thousands, but over the 1,000, 1,500, 1,600, whatever he's on, different episodes, over time you amass this huge experience, this huge like wealth of knowledge from all these different people, for like talking about, what they know for hours and hours on end, right? And there's just, at least for me, like it kind of just, it's weird because, okay, so one of the things I like to do when I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast is like, I'll listen to it while I'm walking, right? So say I go for a walk and I walk for like an hour. Not only am I getting physical exercise, but now I'm listening to, a conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example. So you could be walking outside at nighttime and they're having a conversation about the stars, and then you yourself can then look up at the stars, right? And it's one of those things where, like I said, it's always going to be something new. It's never going to be like, oh yeah, we know about this, or you can't really get tired of it because you never know what to expect, right? And like I said, for someone like me who loves to learn and learn new things and then share those new things that I've learned, it's very beneficial. So I'll say this. I'll give you a few of my top episodes that I would recommend that people listen to, that was like, it can like change the way you think, right? Because obviously these people have spent a lot of time in these fields. So what you say or what they say, you kind of have to, I'm not saying like blindly accept it as the truth, but it's like, hey, they spent that amount of time on that subject for a reason. Now, what that reason is, like, I can't really know, but it's a strong enough reason for them to spend 20 years studying this, whatever. So yeah, not to say to go ahead and just believe it right away, but at least just hear it out, hear this new perspective, hear this new point of view. So let me just go to my list, if I could find it. Give me 1 second. Okay. So there was a few episodes that I believe, I'm not going to say like mainstays, but it's definitely something that you should listen to, because these episodes can definitely like open your eyes to an even greater possibility than what you thought was possible before you even go into listening to these episodes, right? So the first episode is episode 142 with Graham Hancock and Duncan Trussell. Now, Graham Hancock, he's like a journalist, a writer. He writes books and novels and stuff like that. And basically, he talks about, his findings, having gone on all these journeys and exploring these ancient ruins and all this stuff, and what he believes, it all means. And one of the things that's so interesting about Graham Hancock is that, so like I said, he is an author, but when you go to a bookstore, right, and you try and look for one of his books, they'll only have one on the shelf. Like it's super weird, right? Not to say that he should have like, 3 rows to himself or blah, 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 but it's literally like one singular book. And then also the book is in the air quotations controversial knowledge section. Like what? Why is there even a controversial knowledge section in the bookstore? Like, this is so interesting to me. And then it's only his book, right? So it's only his book that's in the controversial knowledge section, but then it's also just one copy of that book. Like, to me, I find that super fascinating. And then, once you actually listen to the episodes and with him on it, like, it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense, because I mean, I don't want to spoil the episodes. Definitely just go ahead and listen to it. But yeah, I'll go and list another episode, another great episode to listen to. And keep in mind, these are like, I'm going to call them like paradigm shifting episodes, to where it's like you go in one way, but then you come out like a completely different way. Like, it's like, wow, I never even thought of this possibility before, right? And now, because you're able to think of that possibility, it's almost like, what other possibilities can I think of? So the next episode 501 with Randall Carlson. Yeah, Randall Carlson, also a legendary guest on the podcast. He is a how do I describe him? He's a mason, so he likes to build things, right? And he also studies what does it study? He basically studies the creation myths, how the earth was made, um, the different religions, like where all those started from. But then also he's very fascinated by land structures, and how how the surface of our earth came to be the way it is, right? He believes that, without going too much into detail, but he believes that, by looking at the way our land is, especially in North America, if you look in specific areas that he's actually traveled to, he believes that there was some sort of, great flood event, right? And this is all based off like science, right? So he'll show like the graphs, the statistics about, oh, what was the temperature at this time versus what happened in between this time period, and like he has the data, right? And then on top of that, he will go to these physical locations and then look at it on like with his own eyes in real life. So he's like, oh, I'm hearing this like river, this bank or wherever, and it's like, oh, you can actually see some sort of past motion within the rocks. I think in one of the episodes he talks about how there was a specific area in North America where the sea level had risen, and then you're able to kind of see the sea levels on these hills, right? So you can clearly see them defined at like, this is 9 meters off the ground, this is blah 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 meters off the ground, but you can kind of see it embedded into the actual hills, meaning like the water had risen to that high, and then now in our time, right, it's way below that. So he kind of goes into like those kind of I don't even know what they are. Like, it's like these ideas, these threads, these thought lines, these thought threads about, ooh, how does this connect to this? And, is this situation related to this situation and stuff like that? So once again, like, just those two guys, and, I'll end this episode here because it's getting kind of long, but just those two, episode 142, episode 501, like, those ones, I would consider them like paradigm shifting ones. And if I come across any more, I mean, obviously I have way more because I've listened to so many episodes. I don't even know how many, but so many episodes. Yeah, I think like those are such a two episodes that are so great to start with. Episode 142. Obviously, go back to episode 1 if you like, but episode 142, episode 501. Like, if you really want to change the way you see the world and how you interface with the world and how you interact with everything in the world, watch those episodes. Those are some great ones. And yeah, so that's going to be the end of this episode here. Once again, if you find anything, if I gave you anything that you find of value during this episode, make sure to support us on the Patreon. Every little bit helps. Trying to grow the community, trying to launch this platform off. So, share it with your friends, leave a comment, And yeah, let's play this outro music.
Further.
I'm sorry?
You said my skills extend farther than the basketball court. Farther relates to distance. Further is a definition of degree. You should have said further.